What's up, guys? It's Johnny the Veggie Giant, your friendly neighborhood vegan bodybuilder, going to discuss my experiences with the ketogenic diet. Now, to give you guys a brief history, I was a competitive bodybuilder for about 10 years. The last few contests that I've won here in Illinois, in the super heavyweight class, the Midwest Ironman and Illinois State, but this is going back a number of years at this point. But those last two contests, I utilized the ketogenic diet, and that diet was so powerful that I was able to get to the lowest body fat I've ever been to before. But you know, it's a progression. When you compete, you eventually learn to get even leaner no matter what. But the reason I got into a ketogenic diet was not because I couldn't get lean enough. I mean, I always got very lean for contests, and I could have gotten even leaner without a ketogenic diet. But being that I'm an experimentative kind of a guy, I would always read about different diets. I've tried every single diet, every modern diet, high fat, low fat, no carb, vegan diets. I'm been a vegan for 2.5 years at this point, but prior to that, the rest of my life I was a diehard meat eater. And once I fell into the information on ketogenic diets, I used them dozens and dozens of times for many years, and I literally would be a self-proclaimed Jedi master of ketogenic diets because I know the ins and outs, and I'm going to share with you my personal experiences in very descriptive detail as to what happens to you when you do actually go on a ketogenic diet, and my thoughts and opinions. And this will be the first of maybe 2 or 3 other videos that I'll make specifically going into a ketogenic diet, the science behind it, and the myths and the facts. There's just so much information by so many people out there about ketogenic diets, and some of which of it is so wrong that it drives me batty. And that's the reason why I'm making this video, just to kind of clear the air a little bit on all of it from someone who has done it personally many times, many years. I've coached athletes on ketogenic diets that have gotten ready for bodybuilding contests, and I've helped everyday folks who needed to lose weight. So I've got plenty of experience on myself as the guinea pig, and as well as others on how they react, and I give you guys a lot of feedback on it because you generally don't get to hear this correct information. There's a lot of misinformation, and in the end, take from it what you will, but just know that this is some diehard, uncensored, very useful information I'm going to share with you guys. I was never going to do these videos. I was actually going to write a book about it because there's just so much wrong information, and I have so many projects, so many things in the works that I don't think that I'll ever really find the time to write the book on it. And it's just not a very high priority for me, even though I am extremely knowledgeable on it, and the information just wants to ooze out of me and share it with you guys. So with that little basic information, let me tell you guys exactly what happens to you when you go on a ketogenic diet. To begin with, it is the hardest diet for anyone to ever utilize for primarily losing fat as fast as possible and preserving and holding on to muscle, which it is a diet where you're supposed to take in 70-80% of your foods, your macronutrients, from fats, and the rest from protein, and 0 carbs. 0, folks, 0. Which ultimately isn't 0 because you can't perfectly times 0, because all foods will have some form of carbohydrate in there at some point, but we're talking about no added carbohydrates into the diet. So foods that are just primarily like bacon, cheese, eggs, those types of foods that have absolutely no additional carbs put in them, and generally no fiber either. If you're going to execute a keto diet, that means no fiber as well. And what else? That's about it. That the other videos I'll make will go into more of the science and what has to be done, but just giving you guys that heads up that a ketogenic diet is the hardest diet. If you've been a competitive bodybuilder, if you've been someone who's utilized many diets in the past, this will still be a hard diet to use, but it'll be one that you can do. But if you're someone who's never really done any hardcore dieting and looking to diet for the first time, and you've heard all this cool stuff about a ketogenic diet, you'll most likely fall flat on your face, and you'll be very disappointed and go home crying to your mama. because you wouldn't have lost any weight and you've actually put yourself through a bunch of torture. So, but I'm going to throw in a vegan plug real quick before I tell you guys more, is that if you're someone who's an everyday person and you're looking to lose weight, and the easiest and most sustainable and enjoyable way, a vegan diet is the #1 diet in my personal opinion, having tried all diets, every single diet you could possibly imagine. Because at this point I'm 40 years old. I am an old man who has tried it all. I am the Obi-Wan of all this stuff. And I've worked with Mr. Olympia competitors, various nutrition gurus, for Mr. Olympia competitors and national level competitors and local Illinois state competitors and so on. So I've got a wealth of information I can share with you guys for those of you wanting some credentials as far as that goes. So let's just go right into what happens to you when you go on a ketogenic diet. For one, you have to dive into ketosis and have your body transition from primarily utilizing carbs for your energy source into it producing ketones primarily. And that part is probably the most difficult part for everybody to get through, because that is a torturous event to go through. I was always able to get it down to within 2 days, 24 to 48 hours, using some metabolic trickery and things like that, which I'll share with you guys in another video. So you'll have to come back. Ideally subscribe to this channel, because there'll be a lot more cool info. But you'll want to come back so that way I can tell you guys the trickery, the little additional secrets of the ketogenic dieting methods. So I was able to do it within 24 to 48 hours. And during that time, even myself, you have to lay low. No running errands, no going to work ideally, and just sit home, watch Netflix and chill, because the way you trigger full-blown ketosis is going through a prolonged period of time with low blood sugar. And once you're in low blood sugar, some people can get the shakes, you feel nauseous, you feel sick, you don't have any energy, you're just in general feel like dirt. That's low blood sugar. And you have to get through that to get into ketosis. There's that phase that you have to get through. And for most people, most everyday folks, even bodybuilders that I know, usually it will take upwards of a week to transition into ketosis. And that is just torture elevated to another level. I mean, I see a lot of nutrition doctors, MDs, promoting going into ketosis over a 1 to 2 week period. And that is just the worst advice someone can get when you want to prolong that torturous event to the shortest amount of time possible, which within 24 to 48 hours, it is very possible, but you have to know how to do that, and most of these doctors don't. And so I would go into ketosis. And right away, what's cool about a ketogenic diet is the first week you feel pretty darn amazing. Right when you go into ketosis, that 24 to 48 hour period, you lose a bunch of water. Like, for example, you lose, let's say, 10 pounds of water, which is an extremely large amount of water, to lose instantly like that without causing you any serious problems. So right away, your face tightens up, your jawline, everything, your face gets more sunken in, your whole body looks a lot leaner, and you instantly see results, even though you're not necessarily leaner, but you look leaner right away. So it really gives you a boost in morale and motivation, because like, wow, this diet's already working and it's only been like 1 day. So that's the cool thing about it, but for most people, like I mentioned, is that they can't get through that first few days of switching over to ketosis for their body. And most people fail because of that. They can't get through that. And some people that do kind of try to make it past that first few days, they bounce in and out of ketosis for various reasons, and it's just not a fun event, which I'll talk about with other experiences. But for now, let's continue on with what I experienced. Once you're in full-blown ketosis, your hunger pains are basically gone, because your cortisol levels shoot up almost literally like 20%, because going into ketosis is a starvation adaptation that the human body has evolved to be able to do for long periods of time, if there's nothing to eat. So it has to use some form of a source if there's no carbohydrates, if there's no food, if there's a famine, and some form of starvation for whatever reason. We don't need to go into that here. The body raises cortisol levels and does a bunch of other things in the body to prevent actually you from going nuts, from your mind freaking out and going into shock and things like that. Because most people, when they go in low blood sugar, your mind is the worst thing that'll happen to you. Is most people can, in real life, for example, could get into some kind of an accident, can hurt themselves, in their body, does not want to die. So it does various hormonal things to prevent your brain from freaking out. So once you're in ketosis, your brain actually feels pretty good on ketones. It's well adapted to utilizing ketones for energy. And so your mood actually ends up being great, and your hunger is gone, because this allows your body and your mind now to go and focus on getting food without literally feeling like you're about to die from starvation. It's a really cool adaptation. All animals, by the way, in the animal kingdom have this kind of adaptation. So we're not special in any way. Lions and fish and every other, literally other animal has this kind of adaptation as well. So for those of you who think we're at the top of the food chain and special in some kind of way, we're not. But so your mood is good, you're feeling good, you're motivated, your hunger is gone, and in general at the gym when you go and work out, everything should still pretty much be the same in terms of if you're used to getting a certain pump, your pump will still be there, your vascularity will still be there, your strength, in all honesty, should go up somewhere between 5-10%, because ketones are a good energy substrate for quick anaerobic exercises. Just they're bad for endurance, so your endurance will go down. So instead of, let's say, doing 12 reps on a particular weight and exercise, you'll be able to do 8, but with those 8 reps you'll actually be able to go heavier. So first week in, feeling good, looking good, strength is up in the gym, the pumps are good, you're feeling motivated, and honestly you're thinking to yourself, man, why hasn't anyone told me about this diet before? This is like magical, it's amazing. So 1 week down, check, and we go into week 2, and this is where things start to get interesting. The fat loss continues if you're doing the diet right, if you're executing it according to plan and doing all the little tricks necessary to make sure you remain in ketosis. But then you actually get side effects. And they can start a little bit earlier than the full week is up, but let's just say, for argument's sake, a week. A week is pretty much a good amount of time where you'll start to see these side effects and these negative consequences of a ketogenic diet. For one, the way you know right away that you're in ketosis is you will have bad breath. And no matter how much you brush your teeth, no matter how many Tic Tacs you pop, your breath will still stink because the ketones actually are being exchanged from your lungs, and you're breathing out ketones, which unfortunately have a very foul smell. And so if you have a girlfriend or a boyfriend or family and relatives, or just anyone that you like to talk to in pretty close proximity, you'll want to step back because your breath will reek. You'll get doggy breath. And there's many ways to know whether or not you're in ketosis or not. Obviously, blood test is one. No point in doing that craziness and spending the money and the hassles of going to the doctor, blah, blah, blah. Another one is keto sticks, where you can pee on keto sticks and it'll tell you, based on the color, if you're in ketosis or not. But that is not the most consistent method, because how many ketones are in your bladder does not equate to how many ketones are in your blood, and so on. So, but bad breath. That's the way you know you're in full-blown ketosis. You just have this dog breath. Next thing that happens is you'll get black bags or horseshoes under your eyes. And the reason for that is because that initial diuresis, the peeing out of all that water initially, you also end up peeing out most minerals that are in your blood. So zinc, magnesium, selenium, all of these primarily minerals, because the body doesn't really do a good job of holding on to minerals. You're supposed to always constantly supply your body with minerals. And your tissues, for most athletes, are deficient. Think of the body as a sponge. So glycogen is obviously stored in the liver and the muscles. Those would be the sponge for glycogen. And the muscles, the liver, and even other tissues, your skin, tendons, all other organs, for the most part, will store minerals. but they will only store them if you have a surplus all the time. And most meat eaters, there's a downside for you guys as meat eaters, especially athlete meat eaters, is you're mineral deficient for the most part. And this is across the board. This has been a proven fact for many athletes, because you sweat out those minerals and you never replenish them well enough. And what causes the black bags under the eyes is a mineral deficiency. So you can see this this phenomenon happen if you're really tired, a little bit of the black bags, but that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about really dark, sickly looking bags under your eyes. Just people call it kind of like raccoon eyes. And you can see this in a lot of children as well, especially because their skin is thinner, and children often have it the worst because children usually are fed a pretty bad diet and are mineral deficient. But if you guys want to know more about that, how to prevent it and things like that, as a side note, another video, I'd be happy to go into that and tell you how to prevent it for yourself or your children or your elderly parents and so on, because that's a totally preventable phenomenon, but it isn't that simple, and you have to understand why, and you have to know exactly how to fix that. But I digress. Back to the ketogenic side effects. So not only do your eyes look sick and sunken in and dark and not healthy, your entire face actually starts looking pretty lacking in color and sickly, and you kind of look like you have the flu. So it's pretty evident for anyone that's around you. Again, loved ones, boyfriend, girlfriend, parents, brothers or sisters, or any really close friends that you see on a regular basis, they actually look at you like, man, you're looking sick. And yeah, from the neck down, you're definitely looking sick. The abs are coming in, everything's on board there, but your face is unfortunately looking sick. It's not a ketogenic diet and being in ketosis is not primarily a healthy thing for the body. Again, it's an adaptive state. Us humans, we're really clever and creative and are transcending our own existence on this planet. We're no longer in the trees and relying on nature. We have taken control of everything, and here we found out a way to utilize an adaptation of starvation for fat loss, which is a pretty cool trick. But again, let's continue what else happens to you. So the first week, when you're in ketosis, everything that you're eating is cool because you're like, man, I'm eating all this bacon and this cheese and all these fatty foods, fatty steaks, ribeyes, and all this other. You can eat all this really fatty stuff, and you're like, man, this is awesome. This is so cool, blah, blah, blah. And, you see people eating carbs, like, why do I need carbs? I'm feeling great on all this fat. But after about a week, you actually start finding the food bland. It's like getting your fix, and then you're like, okay, it's not so great after a while. And your brain is a wonderful, mysterious, magical organ that will not forget that at some point it wants carbs in the body. Carbs is the primary fuel source and building blocks for the entire body minus protein. Ketones are not. The body is adapted to use ketones, but fortunately, glycogen, sugars, carbohydrates is what the body primarily needs. And the brain at that point is going into a withdrawal after about a week. And it'll start sending you signals that, it's doing fine on ketones for now, and but it's going to need sugar soon. And the thing that happens when you're on a ketogenic diet is there is a lot of enzymes that are upregulated and downregulated to literally lock in the glycogen in your muscles and in your liver, so that way it's using ketones. However, your body will still pull from those glycogen stores, and over time, over weeks and weeks, let's say you're at a high level of glycogen in your muscles and your liver. As you remain on a ketogenic diet and you're exercising, which is something you should be doing if you're going to employ a ketogenic diet for maximizing fat loss and preserving muscle, exercises has to be part of the equation. Those people that go on a ketogenic diet who aren't athletes and just trying to lose weight don't do well, because the body can only create ketones fast enough from its existing fat stores if you're not working out, and the body doesn't ramp that up because you're not fueling it, not forcing it through exercise to have to burn off more ketones. So someone who's not exercising on a ketogenic diet, you're wasting your time. You're going through torture and heck for nothing. because you're not going to get the most out of a ketogenic diet. So that's, that's again a side note. If you guys want me to tune back in and hear about the science of how to really employ a ketogenic diet properly, because it is not that simple. Like I said, to me personally, it is the hardest diet anyone could possibly do. If you do it right, you'll be able to knock it out, but you also have to be a little bit twisted and off to be able to pull that off, because it requires having the ability to go through torture. So as your glycogen stores are being slowly depleted, your body still produces insulin. One of the other myths and misconceptions about a ketogenic diet is that the reason it works so well is because the pancreas no longer produces insulin and you have low blood sugar the entire time, and that's, everything's kosher that way. And that's false. Your liver always produces insulin. Your body still utilizes metabolic pathways through gluconeogenesis from the proteins you eat to actually still produce sugar in the blood, because ketones are not the only fuel source it wants to and use during its normal bodily functions. So ketones are primarily used, but still sugar and glycogen the body produces and utilizes and pulls from the stores and manufactures from the proteins through the amino acid gluconeogenesis process. So over time, your glycogen levels will start getting depleted. And as the more depleted they get, the stronger the signals your brain gets and sends to you that you're going to have to find carbohydrate sources. This would be in in the Neanderthal times, it would be your brain saying, hey, go dig up some carrots or some potatoes, or go find some berries in a bush, kind of signals. And there are proven genetic pathways. I think like something like 30 plus genes that activate during starvation. So when your brain starts sending you these signals for carbs, it is extremely powerful. And I'll explain that in a moment, what ends up happening. So that second week, when I used to go shopping for more of my foods for a ketogenic diet, whether it was bacon, eggs, cheese, and so on, as I used to walk through the grocery store, and I used to walk through like the fresh baked goods, and I used to get a whiff of fresh baked bread or pizza or cookies, these carbs that you smell in the air, they literally would make me twitch. I used to just sit there like, and I used to run through that aisle and buy what I needed and get the heck out of there. And then during those times, I was getting ready for a contest. I had specific goals, but if I wasn't strong-willed and didn't have these particular goals, I could have easily caved. And that's one of the things that happens for a lot of people as well when they're on a ketogenic diet, is they do cave. They do end up buying some carbs and eating some carbs, and they fail the diet because of that. Because with a ketogenic diet, you got to be all in. You can't have one foot in the pool and think it's okay. That's the mistake that a lot of people make, and that are also another big misconception, is that you can kind of get away with cheating. This is a diet that you cannot cheat on for it to be optimal and maximizing the fat loss and muscle retention. So if you do cheat, you short circuit this very intricate process that happens of your body producing ketones and regulating its blood sugar at a very low state to function by pulling glycogen stores, manufacturing sugar from proteins, and this very delicate state. So you throw in sugar in that delicate state, you literally are throwing a little bit of a little grenade in a whole system, and it literally short circuits it for the time that you do that. And you can bounce back from it, but you're wasting a lot of time, and you're putting yourself through not feeling well, and you're not utilizing the diet properly. So going back to the signals your brain sends you, I would literally have dreams about eating pizza and bread and cookies and baked goods that I just smelled at the grocery store. And this almost happened probably almost every night into the second week. And it was nuts. I like food. I like food a lot, but I would never dream about eating food generally. And here, almost every night, I'd be dreaming about carbs. Your brain literally is sending you these powerful signals, even in your sleep. When you wake up, go get some carbs, is what it's sending you. It's wild. And one fun and positive note on a ketogenic diet is that you generally won't have any gas, because gas comes from carbs and from fibrous foods that your microbiome ferments, and that's where gas comes from. So on a ketogenic diet, I literally had no gas. I mean, I think I tooted once a week, and it was just a little toot. And that was it. You have no gas. So that was kind of fun. But the worst side effect that I personally would say you will experience on a ketogenic diet is severe diarrhea. And the reason for that is because fats are stool softeners. So without any grains and wheat products and things like that in your diet, your poop doesn't gel up into this nice little mass that comes out in kind of a paste form as a whole. You're literally peeing brown water from your behind, and it's disgusting. It's just terrible. I never really hear anybody say anything about it. Everyone was always so positive about a ketogenic diet, and they saw all these amazing, wonderful things that they love it, and it's so great. And you know, to me personally, there's more negatives than positives, but ultimately it is a sledgehammer approach to getting fat lost if you, again, execute it properly. It has to be executed properly. I know I'm beating a dead horse when I say this, but so many people make the mistake of not executing it properly. And they go through all of these side effects and consequences. Most people don't keep track as well. You know, I've done it dozens upon dozens of times, so I kept track of all these little things that happened to me, and I was like, you know, each time, you know, the first few times you don't really notice it because you're more focused on seeing the fat loss and so on. You have to do it many, many, many times to actually really fully appreciate what is happening to you on a ketogenic diet. So if you do this the first time and you love it, you know, you're okay with the diarrhea, you're okay with going through the low blood sugar and the torture of it, and the bad breath, and just looking sick and not looking well, that's fine. It's, you know, it's more power to you. So that's week 2 down. Check. Now week 3 comes along and we're cruising along. Fat loss is continuing. So one nice thing about the ketogenic diet, if you do it properly, the fat loss just continues. You're going to keep losing fat. And in all honesty, you can lose fat faster than any other diet on a ketogenic diet if you, again, do it properly and are willing to sacrifice dealing with these consequences and these side effects of a ketogenic diet. So as you are losing more fat, what also continues is a further progression of the side effects. So at this point, typically by the 3rd week, your glycogen levels will now be pretty well depleted. And so if you're doing it right, you're exercising regularly, at least 4 days a week, you know, preferably almost 5. And at this point, your body has pulled a lot of glycogen from its stores. When it does that, you're no longer feeling so hot. Your mood actually goes down and you're not feeling great. When you first go into ketosis, like that first week, when I always go into ketosis, the first few days when I'm transitioning and I feel myself in a ketogenic state, you feel euphoric. You feel almost mildly high, like you're on a low dose opiate, you know, Vicodin or other, because you feel really good. You're just surprised because from going to a very low blood sugar, not feeling well, and nausea and everything else, possible shakes, and just general malaise, all of a sudden your body just switches and you feel good, like that. Once it does that, it's literally, and you're just like, wow, I just felt like dirt a few hours ago and now I feel great. And you do feel really well. Ketones make you feel kind of fizzy and bubbly and good. So, you know, that's one of those things initially why you're kind of high. And again, it's part of that adaptive state of starvation, so that way you are feeling good, so your brain can be focused and you can go hunt some berries, come dig up some potatoes or whatever else. Point is, it gives your body and your brain a chance to go and get food, because it's in essence starving. Now, when I say starving on a ketogenic diet, to give you guys a little bit of additional information, when you're on a ketogenic diet, your calories shouldn't be dropped too low. You should be dropped only about 10% of your caloric intake from where you're at, because if you do drop it down too severely, your metabolism will slow down and you actually won't lose fat as quickly. So the body will fight back in numerous ways. So this is a fine balance and juggling act on how to execute this diet properly, which is again why I will go into another video explaining more of the specific scientific ins and outs and the do's and don'ts to utilize this diet properly, so you do again maximize fat loss and maintain your muscle mass. So mood goes down the third week, glycogen levels are obviously down and depleted, your energy levels at the gym now go down, and your motivation to work out and to go to the gym are pretty much out the window. You're not excited to go to the gym anymore. You're feeling good, but you just don't have that energy and that motivation. It's just not there. When your brain is no longer, now you're starting to kind of almost get like a brain fog. You're just not feeling well. Your strength also starts to drop because your glycogen levels now are pretty low, so there's not that much. You actually won't have the whole heck of a lot left. You're literally running almost on an empty tank of gas. So your strength will be down, your energy will be down, and your pumps and vascularity, all that will go out the window. And you now, what your face, how it felt sickly, your body will start to look sickly. You'll look flat and you'll look depleted. You'll be lean, but you're gonna not look good anymore. You're not gonna have that nice full roundness, vascularity, musculature, and pumps when you go work out, and in general you just won't look that way. You'll not be feeling well at all. This is where the full starvation state is going to really take hold of you. And then the carb cravings are just much worse. I mean, there's severe. It's to the point where your body is almost tasting carbs. Your brain is manufacturing the taste of carbs in your mouth to be like, okay, this is what we need. We need this sugary food source in our mouths. Go freaking get it, and get it now. And so this, almost the taste in your mouth is there because your brain is just literally now to the point, now it's almost in freak out mode that you have to get something to eat. So usually I would get into the fourth week. When I first used to start out doing ketogenic diets, I used to literally go about 4 weeks, and usually at about 4 weeks I was teetered out. My glycogen level was were so low, and I was feeling so lousy that I just never made it past 4 weeks. Now, keep in mind though, anytime I've ever done a ketogenic diet, I've never been obese utilizing a ketogenic diet. I've never gotten extremely fat. I have gained weight and gotten quite big, but never obese. So when I used a ketogenic diet for 3 to 4 weeks, I would drop down, at times I think 20 pounds. And I'm a big guy. I'm 6'3", 260 pounds. So for me to drop down 20 pounds on a severely strict diet is not uncommon for me. And that's what would happen for me. And I would lose that weight, and I would be depleted, and I'd be teetered out. So I had to stop. And then ultimately, what I ended up doing is finding a middle ground that I would utilize, and usually that was right at about the 3 week mark. Right up until about 3 weeks is how far I would go into a diet, give or take, a few days, because again, there'd be times where I was a little more depleted, and there'd be other times where I was dieting and I'd be less depleted. But as a general rule of thumb for me, for severe dieting and maximizing muscle mass and maximizing fat loss, 3 weeks was about the most I would go, and then I would do a refeed, and then I would employ the diet once more. So again, I'll go into effective strategies for that in another video. So if you want to know those really good details, you'll want to come back. And let's see, what else can I tell you guys in my little notes here? When you diet down normally, when you do, let's say, a modern diet being where your macros are 30-30-30. Proteins 30%, fats 30%, carbs 30%, and then the other 10% is your room for error. Generally, your tummy goes down. Now, I'm a bodybuilder in the off season. When I bulk up, I get the little pregnancy belly, the 2-3 month baby belly, along with being just huge and jacked, looking and really, really full, almost like a powerlifter or a wrestler. And when you use a modern diet or any derivative of that sort of a diet, your stomach right away goes down and starts to get flat and smaller. On a ketogenic diet, it doesn't seem to do that, and I think that's more of a factor of the cortisol levels being high and the type of macronutrients you're intaking. The fats and the proteins are not very conducive for lowering the size of the stomach, and I think that has to do with the IGF-1 levels being elevated from all that and various other ways from that starvation state. So one of the other things that I didn't like is the stomach wouldn't ultimately go down as nicely, and contributes to almost a thicker waist, which is not that great. I wasn't too fond of that, and that was every time. I used to literally, at the 3-week mark, really be surprised, saying, wow, my stomach normally on another diet would have been much flatter and much smaller, and not have a little bit of a distension to it. So there's almost a reduced ability of the stomach to go down. Sorry about that, peeps. And the other thing is that the diet is devoid of vitamins and minerals and antioxidants. So it causes a lot of oxidative stress on the body. And what that means is it's really accelerates aging. The antioxidants, the minerals, the fibrous foods all keep you healthy. That's one of the reasons why the face looks so sickly on that diet, is because all of those micronutrients are pretty much deficient for you when you're on a ketogenic diet, because your body, without taking in leafy greens, fruits, and various other sources that are micronutrient rich, your body becomes even more deficient, because your body just keeps letting go of all the minerals. And then no matter what you people may say, steak and chicken and fish do not have that many minerals and vitamins. They do not to the point of what you're going to need on this type of a diet. So it's something that, one of the biggest consequences in my opinion is it will age you more. And if you have the killer instinct attitude when you compete of do whatever it takes, no matter what the consequences are, then just know that once you do complete a ketogenic diet, your face will look a little bit older. And the more you do that, the older and older it gets. Of course, that means more wrinkles. You lose the plumpness and suppleness of your skin, and then the fullness and so forth goes away as well. So you look older, and it's not severe, but it happens because of the oxidative stress and the damage that occurs during this diet, which is again something that isn't normally talked about, but it's something that you should consider, because anyone who's looking to lose weight is doing it for vanity most of the time, and anyone in the fitness world is pretty vain, and you want to continue to look good, not just from the neck down. You want your face to continue to look good. And I know a lot of older bodybuilders that are my age, 40 plus, who have aged severely just from their lifestyles and their poor health that wasn't geared towards optimal health. And their diets just, were strictly the meat and potatoes. And in general, even though they didn't do a ketogenic diet, a lot of bodybuilders don't eat a micronutrient-rich diet, low antioxidant rich diet. And again, we can talk about that in other videos, but oxidative stress is terrible on a ketogenic diet. And again, your cortisol levels are usually about 20% higher, which is very high. I mean, for cortisol levels to go up that high, that only contributes to further oxidative damage. So, and then for obese folks, one of the things, when I've helped coach friends and associates and other people that are not getting ready for a contest, that are just, let's say, obese or on borderline obese, most of them couldn't hack the diet for long. They would bounce in and out of ketosis because they would cheat. Going into ketosis, they usually couldn't handle it because it was too difficult, and it was just, it's the equivalent of torture. Low blood sugar is the equivalent of torture, physically and mentally. And most people that are overweight are used to eating high quantities of junk and garbage and never having low blood sugar, and having all sorts of orgasmic tastes in their mouth of sugar and salt. And on this diet, that is absent. And again, a really good diet instead of a ketogenic diet to utilize is a vegan diet. Even if it is just for a month, if you did it for a month and stayed with most of the parameters of a vegan diet, you'll sustain that diet and be able to lose more weight quicker and more sustainably over time, and not gain the weight back. Because anyone that has ever done a ketogenic diet that, again, is not an athlete, they've never lost the weight that well and effectively, because also they wouldn't work out as often as necessary. And again, they would cheat, thinking that it's okay to cheat, even though I would explain in extreme detail that if they did cheat, it short circuits the whole system and screws it all up. But most people that are in that normal person range trying to lose weight, they don't understand that. They just don't get it. They hear it but when the carb cravings come calling, they're going to eat that donut, or they're going to go have that ice cream, or whatever else that they have to have, or they're going to go hit up McDonald's or Taco Bell or whatever else and think that it's okay because nobody's looking. Well, the body's looking. You can't lie to the body. And ultimately, when they didn't lose weight, it's pretty obvious what's happening. Despite whatever they said, how strict they were, and how often they were working out, it's not for a normal person. I think it's the advanced level type of a diet. If you're someone who is looking to experiment and see what the body is capable of doing, it's a great diet to try. Once I've went vegan, I've done a vegan version twice, but at this point I did not even enjoy getting through the low blood sugar into ketosis. And again, the food, even a vegan version, was still bland because it was just some basics, that were eaten over and over and over. And so it's just not ideal unless you have really specific goals and you're a little nuts. And there's nothing wrong with that. It's another bag of the dieting arsenal. And if you want to try it, go for it. This is exactly what happened to me, doing it dozens upon dozens of times over the years. And it does work if you want to go through the pain, torture, and the side effects and the consequences that come with that diet. Me personally, I don't think I'll ever use a ketogenic diet again. Maybe if I compete, and again, because I haven't competed in years, and my diet isn't on track as where I want to be, maybe I'll do it for 2 weeks just to accelerate the fat loss, maybe. And that would require a lot of thinking on my part, because I don't think I would ever want to employ a ketogenic diet again, in honesty, due to what happens to you. So, hope you guys find that interesting, and it was fun sharing my story. And look out for the next video, telling you guys even more.